Right now at 5, drivers on US 40 can expect to take a detour as construction begins.
And we've got a few isolated showers out there, some patchy fog to deal with this morning as well. We'll get you out the door with that forecast coming up.
Plus, a former Holiday Inn in Joplin gets demolished after it ceased operations in 2016.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning, 4 states, and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. The time now is 5 a.m. I'm Caitlin O'Shaughnessy.
I'm Chris Warner. So it's another pretty cool start to the day, but thanks to the rain we got last night and yesterday, we have some fog to contend with across the area this morning, so you got to watch out. Now, right now, we don't have any dense fog advisories, and taking a look at the MoDOT camera from 20th and Rangeline in Joplin, just a little hazy out there, not super foggy, but you get into some of those rural areas and it gets pretty foggy pretty fast. So Skywatch Storm Tracker, not showing much out there. Most of what you're seeing not happening. The last of our showers from overnight beginning to exit, but an isolated shower or two is still possible as we go through the first half of our Tuesday. Let's take a look at the fog. So as you can see, it's patchy out there, and that's what I ran into on the way here. You'd hit a patch that visibility dropped almost zero, and then, you know, a half mile down the road, it was clear again. You can see our densest fog right now right over Jasper County, extreme eastern Cherokee County, and southern portions of Barton County. So portions of the I-44 and I-49 corridors out there. You got to watch out for that dense fog across the area. But again, no dense fog advisories at this time, but we'll keep an eye on that and let you know if that does change. So isolated shower or two still possible this morning as kids get on the bus. So you might still need that umbrella or at least a light rain jacket, maybe just something to keep warm, because look at that, 59 at 7 a.m. with a northeast breeze 5 to 10. No change in the wind and just a pinch warmer later today, so not a bad day. We're looking partly cloudy skies by this afternoon, going right about 72 by 3 o'clock. As we get our morning started, again, aside from some patchy fog and a few isolated showers, we're otherwise looking at mostly cloudy skies. A stray shower still possible through the morning. Most of us remaining dry as we go into the mid-60s. We look down the road, so we get through the morning, and again, here's some of those isolated showers, and by this afternoon, they are out of here, and you can see on our 7 to 7 precip chances, they're pretty low initially, and then they just go to zero a little later in the afternoon. We still have a pretty decent week ahead of us. We'll take a look at that and when our next round of rain could be here in a few more minutes. Caitlin?
Thanks, Chris. A Pittsburgh man is in jail without bond after his arrest on multiple warrants over the weekend. He's 40-year-old Jerome DeVore. Police were called to the 500 block of East 6th Street for a disturbance Saturday evening and saw DeVore, who had multiple felony warrants from Crawford and Cherokee counties. DeVore fled into the home and officers heard movement in a connected commercial building. Authorities got a search warrant for the commercial building, then used a police dog to find DeVore hiding inside. Demolition began on a building popular in Joplin's past. The Holiday Inn at 3615 Rangeline Road was once Joplin's largest hotel with 262 rooms, a popular lounge, and the Water Wheel restaurant. The hotel ceased operations in 2016 in anticipation of a remodel that never came, and delays led to dilapidation. In recent years, the Joplin Fire Department has been called to the structure multiple times for fires. It's been labeled as one of Joplin's most dangerous buildings. And watch as an explosion brings down a historic Missouri bridge. The Missouri Department of Transportation live streamed this footage of the demolition of the I-70 Rocheport Bridge near Columbia. The bridge over the Missouri River was built in 1960 and underwent extensive rehabilitation in 1993, according to MoDOT, but was judged to be at the end of its useful life. Traffic is flowing again in that area. Crews have been removing the debris from the river to clear the channel for boat traffic. A new $220 million bridge is scheduled to be completed by December 2024. And some travelers on US 400 in southeast Kansas should expect a detour this week. That's because the South Kansas and Oklahoma Railroad plans to close and repair the US 400 crossing at Cherokee. That crossing will be closed to traffic from 6 a.m. Wednesday to 6 p.m. Thursday. Eastbound traffic will detour south on K7 to to K103, then east to US 69 and north to US 400. Westbound traffic takes the same route in the opposite direction. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt calls for a special session specifically to deal with taxes. Stitt says he's demanding tax fairness for all of Oklahomans, a tax cut, and an increase in transparency of the state budget process. He says legislators to ultimately eliminate state income taxes for all Oklahomans. And that's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News. Chris Jones' holdout is over. The Chiefs make a deal with him to continue to play for the team. Plus, are you a night owl? You may want to start going to bed earlier, as it could increase your risk of diabetes. And it's another day that won't hit the 80s. We'll have what to expect from today's weather with Chris in the Skywatch Weather Center. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. We'll be right back.
Well, Missouri Southern football is 1-1 for the second year in a row. Lions are coming off a nail-biting 30-23 win over Washburn on Thursday, and after the Lion defense put the game away with an interception, they want to do more of the same going forward.
Honestly, I was just looking at my man, and then once I turned in, I figured out it was a scramble. Like, my D-line was almost getting to the QB, and then I see a tip ball in the air, and I just went up and I grabbed it. And also, it was my first interception, my first career interception ever, so I guess I was saving my first for the best one, I guess.
Just watching the defense fly around and make that play obviously is great. We understand that there's going to be times where our offense is going to have that ball and they're going to need to punch it in to win the game for us. And so whichever side is called up will be the side that delivers the win for us.
Missouri Southern not receiving any votes in this week's top 25, but across state lines, Pittsburg State certainly is. D2 coaches poll is released yesterday. The Gorillas remain at the number 3 spot after a dominant road win over Fort Hays State, where they outscored the Tigers 27-0 in the third and fourth quarters. And PSU is now one of 3 MIAA teams to be ranked in the top 25. Northwest falls from 5 to 15 after losing to Emporia State, but that catapults the Hornets into the 12th spot, and Central Missouri not in the top 25, but also receiving votes after a 2-0 start to its season. Over to pro football, the Chiefs announced that the wait is over. 4-time All-Pro defensive tackle Chris Jones will be rejoining the team after his months-long contract holdout. Two sides worked out a new deal for 1 year that was agreed upon yesterday. We don't know the specifics of it yet, but just that it is filled with incentives for Jones to make more this season than his previous contract would have allowed. In local softball, Seneca picking up its first win of the season yesterday evening on the road at Carl Junction. Abby Jamrose has a big day on the mound at the plate. She goes 4-5 with 4 singles. The Indians take down the Bulldogs 9-6. Meanwhile, Nevada falls to 11-4 on the season with a 3-1 loss at home to Holden. Tigers started their year with a loss, then won 11 games in a row before losing 3 straight. They're back at it on the road at Logan Rogersville today. Still to come, the search intensifies as time continues to run out for survivors of the Morocco earthquake. Plus, going to check that foggy forecast when the KOAM Morning News returns. Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News, 5:14 now on this Tuesday morning. Taking a look at 4 different Metro cams from MoDOT, and you can see fog's not super dense, but we've been watching it slowly thicken up across the city this morning. So our densest fog right now really over Jasper County into southern Barton and parts of extreme eastern Cherokee County. Taking a look at the MoDOT camera down in Neosho at US 60, Missouri 59. You can see not looking as foggy down there. And we're getting some fog now starting to thicken up a bit on the KDOT camera at 69 East 520 just south of Pittsburgh. And that's kind of been hit and miss on the fog. Earlier this morning it was a little bit denser, then it started to clear up, and now it's starting to thicken back up out there. And take a look, you can watch it rolling in. We're just talking, it looked like John Carpenter's The Fog. Watching this initially just start rolling in from the north, and you're expecting those leopard guys, those guys coming out to just start appearing. Now, thankfully, that's not going to happen, or at least it shouldn't. But we are foggy. 62, visibility down to at or slightly below 1 mile in the city. Looking at temperatures around the area, pretty cool start out there. 59 in Lamar, 63 in Pittsburgh, 65 Chanute, Miami, and 63 in Neosho. So again, a pretty cool start across the area. Still an isolated shower or two possible as we go through the morning hours. Otherwise, mostly cloudy, mid-60s. And of course, that fog will begin to burn off, as will the clouds. A couple more stray showers leading up to about 2 o'clock, and then after that, the last of the showers should be out of here. We're otherwise partly cloudy today, and not bad, mid-70s for our expected high. And we head into this evening. We've got partly cloudy skies through the evening, cooling off pretty quickly, back down to 62 by 10, 60 for an overnight low, and another round of fog expected as we head into the overnight and early morning hours on our Wednesday. We look down the road, and boy, it's looking pretty good. We're getting back to where the forecast just goes like that. There's not that much going on right now. Do have some isolated shower chances as we head into Thursday, especially into the evening. Temperatures hanging out in the upper 70s for most of the week and heading into the weekend. Overnight lows again, not bad. Some 50s, a couple of lower 60s. And we'll go back into the lower 80s as we head into the beginning of next week. But still not bad because our average is right around the mid-80s, so we're not far off from that. So we're not getting too hot and we're not too cold yet. We got another round of potential showers on Tuesday evening across the area as well. So again, at this point, no dense fog advisories in our area right now, but again, our densest fog right around Jasper County and extreme eastern Cherokee, southern Barton. So we're talking I-49, I-44 corridors. You got to slow down out there. And of course, in the rural areas, watch out for that dense fog as well. We'll have another look at what's going on with the fog situation out there and make sure there's nothing coming out of it that shouldn't be. And we'll be back with Health Watch right after this. This morning, bad news for night owl. He has linked staying up late to an increased risk of diabetes. Researchers found night owls showed a 72% greater risk of developing type 2 diabetes over 8 years. It's not clear why that is. People who stay awake into the late hours are likely to have poor diets, drink more alcohol, be less physically active, and have more body fat. They also tend to sleep either less or more than the suggested 7 to 9 hours. Even when these lifestyle factors were accounted for, night owls still had a 19% higher chance of developing diabetes. Scientists think the same genetic factors that make people more likely to stay up late could also make them more predisposed to the disease. The American Red Cross, the organization that provides about 40% of the nation's blood and blood components to patients in need, says their supply has hit what it calls critically low levels. Mandy Gaither has more on what led to the shortage and how you can help.
For months, back-to-back climate-driven disasters have further strained the U.S. blood supply, forcing the American Red Cross to sound the alarm, saying their supplies are critically low.
It has become challenging for us to meet the demand of our hospitals.
With a busy summer travel season and back-to-school activities, the organization was already seeing low donor turnout. That, paired with blood drive cancellations because of extreme weather, has led to the national blood supply dropping by nearly 25% since early August, despite a constant demand.
Blood cannot be manufactured, it can't be stockpiled, and really it's the blood on the shelves on a daily basis that is needed to save lives.
From emergencies to cancer patients and women in delivery, blood is used to help patients every day. The Red Cross says all blood types are urgently needed, but there's an emergency need for platelet donors and type O blood donors.
About 40% of this country's population is eligible to donate, and only about 4% do.
When Hurricane Idalia slammed into the southeast, the Red Cross says it was unable to collect more than 700 units of blood and platelets, and the storm season isn't over. Hurricane Lee is now being closely monitored.
The need is constant, and it's the patients that are at the other end of this life-saving product.
Anyone interested in giving blood or platelets can make an appointment through the Red Cross Blood app. Visit redcrossblood.org, or you can call 1-800 That's a look at some of our top health stories this morning. You're watching the KOAM Morning News, and we are watching fog rolling into the... Wow, look at that. Starting to densen up even since a few minutes ago. We'll have the latest on your forecast when the KOAM Morning News returns.
Right now at 5:30, we'll have how Pitt State's ROTC cadets honored those who lost their lives on 9/11.
And fog beginning to thicken up around the metro area, but not quite everywhere. We'll take a look at that fog and that forecast to get you out the door coming up.
Plus, Neodesha High School Choir opens up a lunch for first responders.
The 4 States Most Watched News starts now.
Good morning, 4 States, and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. The time now is 5:25 a.m. I'm Caitlin O'Shaughnessy.
I'm Chris Warner. So it's a pretty nice start out there, a little bit on the cool side.
But the fog.
The fog is another issue, but the fog is also at this point isolated in terms of where the densest fog is. Taking a look at our camera 7th and range line, you can see that fog thickening up out there. And as we look at MoDOT cameras around the metro, some of them, this one at 7th and Garden Grove, so out by Duquesne, fog a little bit thicker there, but back towards 7th and range line, 20th, you can see it's starting to thicken up a bit across the area. Right now, the Skywatch Storm Tracker, not much to show on it, but a few isolated showers still possible for some of us, but most of us will remain dry as we go through today. So you can see the dense fog really centered right over Jasper County, parts of southern Barton, and extreme eastern Cherokee County. So the I-49 and I-44 corridors, you got to slow down and watch out. But take a look, even out toward the west, Independence visibility down just about 2.5 miles. And you can see that gray coloring and the reduced visibilities, because on a clear day, a good day, these should all say 10. And so we do have reduced visibilities around the area, but some of that denser fog right around Jasper County right now. So if you're commuting, just watch out for that. Could still see, again, an isolated shower or two this morning. Most of us dry, but we're talking upper 50s by 7 a.m. And when that bus brings them home, though, we all start to dry out, partly cloudy and low 70s out there. And getting our morning started once again. I've said it 20 times. I think you get it. But isolated showers possible. Most of us dry, mostly cloudy. We're talking mid-60s by late morning. And on the future track, you can see there's some of those just isolated showers that'll hang around the area, and then they will clear out. So we look at the rain chances. You can see they are relatively low, and then after 2 o'clock, they drop to nothing. We'll have another full look at your forecast and how the week ahead is shaping up here in a few more minutes. Caitlin?
Thanks, Chris. Neodesha High School students opened a luncheon with the national anthem in appreciation for first responders yesterday at St. Ignatius Catholic Church. The church fed police, firefighters, doctors, and nurses. For volunteers, it was a way to pay tribute to those first responders on 9/11.
I just hope the community recognizes the fact that, there's people out here that are doing something besides sitting home and playing on the phone. So, like I said, there's a lot of people who do a lot of things, but they don't get a whole lot of recognition. And I think sometimes you need to say thank you.
The first responders were also treated to a barbecue lunch. A Neodesha funeral home also served up an appreciation lunch for first responders. This marks the 10th year the funeral home has honored local first responders with such an event.
Back in 2001, it was such a tragic event and such a large loss of firemen. It's just really nice to see everybody kind of come together and support us and our profession and law enforcement as well.
Many men and women went on to become firefighters, EMS, or enlist in the military in the days following 9/11. Yesterday marked 22 years since a terrorist attack brought down the World Trade Center in New York. People in the 4 states and across the country took time to honor the memory of those who lost their lives because of that attack. Pittsburgh State yesterday held its annual Patriot Day, remembering at Kearney Smith Stadium. Student cadets with the ROTC fired the cannon there 4 times, once representing when the first World Trade Center tower was hit, then again when the second tower was hit, and finally 2 more times when each tower fell. The cadets also took turns reading off the names of the 2,977 people killed that day and 65 additional names of those who died from injuries and lung disease caused by the attacks. All
all the people that died and their families. I think all the courageous people that went into those burning buildings to help get people out. And just that, that was an act of terror on our country.
The cadets also did a push-up for every name read. Many Americans remember watching the events of 9/11 unfold, but newer generations have a different perspective. Traveling looked a lot different before 9/11. No long checkout lines. You could even bring a blade up to 4 inches on board a plane. Needless to say, Gen Z can't relate, and many Gen Zers we spoke with say they learned the significance of the 9/11 through their loved ones.
My mother knew it was a great tragedy, but she was really struck by it because of my dad, since my dad is, now he's retired from the military. Pretty sure he joined in 2003, served 2 tours in Afghanistan, 1 tour in Iraq, and 1 tour in Kuwait.
When the KOAM Morning News switches on over to Fox 14, we'll hear from more members of Gen Z on how they're reflecting on that tragic day. And someone who remembers the events of that day all too well is retired Navy Captain Joseph Grandisher. He visited the Coleman Theater in Miami to give a presentation about the attack on the Pentagon. At the time, Grandisher worked in the Pentagon as a spokesman in the Navy's Chief of Information Office. He was there when a plane crashed into the building.
I was on active duty at the time in the Navy's Public Affairs Office when the plane hit the building. The plane stopped short of my office by about 30 feet. So I felt the plane hit, heard it hit, and was in the area of the immediate reaction to it. So I'm out here by telling my story, it makes it real for people that only heard about it.
Before the presentation, people were able to meet Captain Grandisher and speak to him personally. Watered Gardens in Joplin will host its 11th annual Empty Bowls event later this month, but some people just can't wait. An early bird special started yesterday for people to buy the bowls handcrafted by local artists. Until the 23rd, the sales support organizations that feed people.
It keeps the momentum going, and people just like the idea that it brings the community together, which it does, and just the environment, the vibe of the Joplin Greenhouse that we're having it at this year. We are going to be receiving a percentage of the sales of the coffee from the coffee bar the evening of the event. So it's just it's a way to bring everyone together, and who doesn't love a beautiful pottery bowl that's handcrafted just for them?
You can buy a bowl early at the Joplin Greenhouse and Coffee Shop. The actual Empty Bowls event will be held at the coffee shop on September 24th. Kansas kicked off its Patriot Day observance a day early with a classic car and bike show. Dozens of cars lined the streets at the VA hospital in Wichita. Cars in the show were judged by patients of the VA hospital, with 3 awards handed out afterwards.
The country, the state of Kansas will never forget. We'll never forget 9/11. None of us will forget that day. And hopefully we continue to teach the younger ones that what happened that day and how we continue to remember and honor.
The car show also took donations for the Wichita Toy Run, happening in November. And that's a look at our top news stories coming up this half hour in the KOAM Morning News. We'll take you to a circus in Germany that isn't using live animals, but rather holograms. Plus, the Biden administration announces a Iran prison swap. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. We'll be right back, but first here's a live look from the Jake Reed Memorial Bridge in Joplin. Topping World Watch, the Biden administration struck a deal with Iran for a prisoner swap. Rebecca Castor has more.
5 American citizens detained in Iran are one step closer to returning home. The Biden White House has agreed to swap prisoners, 5 Iranians for 5 Americans, and unfreeze $6 billion in Iranian money, a deal Republicans are slamming.
I welcome the release of American citizens from any country in the world, but when we pay ransom payments to terrorist regimes like Iran, we only encourage them.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken sealed the deal last week, but members of Congress were not notified until Monday, when Americans commemorated 22 years since the 9/11 terrorist attacks.
Remember, this is a nation that has done recent maritime operations in the Persian Gulf with Russia, with China, and now Iran. Their attitude hasn't changed.
Senators Katie Britt and Tom Cotton call the deal shameful. Britt sharing in a statement, the Biden administration choosing today of all days to notify Congress the president is handing $6 billion to the biggest state sponsor of terrorism in the world just adds insult to injury. President Biden did not address the prisoner swap during his 9/11 remarks in Alaska, but says,
"We're going to continue to disrupt terrorist activity wherever we may find it. And I will never hesitate to do what is necessary to defend the American people."
According to the deal, Iran is only permitted to use the unfrozen funds to purchase food, medicine, or other humanitarian items. The scientist famous for the creation of Dolly the sheep, the first mammal clone from an adult cell, has died. Sir Ian Wilmot was 79. The Roslin Institute of the University of Edinburgh put out a press release Monday confirming the professor's passing. Wilmot's team from the Roslin Institute and PPL Therapeutics conducted research that led to the birth of Dolly the cloned sheep in 1996. Professor Wilmot was knighted in 2008 for his work on the breakthrough. According to the press release, he retired from the University of Edinburgh in 2012. He went on to back an initiative to tackle Parkinson's disease after being diagnosed with the condition. A powerful and deadly storm unleashed devastating floods in eastern Libya. State media reports, quote, an official who says more than 2,000 people have been feared to have been killed in one city. The official didn't give a source for his numbers, and the Red Crescent said earlier that they estimate 150 to 250 people are dead in the city of Derna. The region got more than 2/3 of its normal annual rainfall in just one day. It came from the remnants of Storm Daniel, which pummeled Greece last week. And North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is in Russia ahead of an expected meeting with President Vladimir Putin. Kim arrived in Russia in a heavily armored private train on Tuesday. He was accompanied by the North's foreign minister along with top arms industry and military officials. Kim and Putin are expected to hold a meeting about a potential arms deal. U.S. intelligence officials say Russia is looking for weapons suppliers as its war against Ukraine continues. The Kremlin has not revealed where or when the meeting will take place. An American researcher trapped in a Turkish cave has been rescued. 40-year-old Mark Dickey had been stranded for more than a week, more than 3,000 feet down inside the cave in Turkey's Teseli Plateau. He became stranded after becoming seriously ill with stomach bleeding on September 2nd. Dickey, an experienced caver, had been on an expedition mapping the cave, the country's third deepest. Rescue teams from across Europe racing to the southern Turkish cave to aid the American, and the cause of his illness was not clear. After his rescue, the European Cave Rescue Association said Dickey would be sent to the hospital following a medical assessment. And the death toll in Morocco keeps climbing following Friday's catastrophic 6.8 earthquake. At least 2,800 people are confirmed dead and thousands more injured. As international rescue teams join the efforts to rescue survivors, other parts of the country are beginning to return to normal. Haley Ott has more from New York.
As the search for survivors of Friday's deadly earthquake intensifies in Morocco, it's a race against time and dangerous work.
If there is a shock, then new buildings can collapse. So it is a real safety issue for the rescuers.
Hundreds of survivors are at a makeshift hospital set up by the Moroccan military, though for thousands of other residents, there's heartbreak. The At Nasser family walked through what's left of their home while mourning their 7-year-old son and brother who died in the quake. In the shadow of this damaged building in Marrakesh, tourists now walk the streets again. Some say they're not afraid of aftershocks.
I don't think it will affect the tourism industry. I think people will still come here to visit.
It's a different scene in the remote communities of the Atlas Mountains, where survivors sift through the rubble of their homes to salvage what's left of their possessions. People have received water and food aid, but say it's not enough. Many are begging their government to request more international aid. Already, search and rescue teams from Spain, France, and several other countries are on the ground helping with the recovery. The U.S. says it's in contact with Moroccan authorities to find the best way to help with humanitarian efforts. Haley Ott, CBS News.
The U.S. says the Moroccan government so far has not given the green light for U.S. aid. The State Department also confirms a small number of Americans were injured in the earthquake, but is not aware of any U.S. citizens dying in the disaster. And that's a look at some of your biggest headlines from around the world. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News, 5:44 now on this Tuesday morning. And take a look. These are 4 different cameras from MoDOT around the Joplin metro area. And it's been interesting. The cameras that are slightly further north, both of these right along 7th Street, the fog getting pretty thick out there, but then you head a little further south, 32nd Street. It's a little hazy, but not bad. And now at 20th and Rangeline, you can see in the street lights the fog starting to sink to the south. And that's where our dense fog is really isolated to. Take a look. MoDOT camera US 60, Missouri 59 Neosho. There's some haze out there, but nowhere near as dense as it is up further north. And again, the KDOT camera 690 East 520th Avenue, there's some light fog out there, and it has been off and on through the morning. I've seen it thicken up and then clear out, and then it thickens back up. So we got to watch out for that dense fog. But you see where the densest is right here from southern Barton County through most of Jasper County, now getting into extreme northern Newton County, parts of Cherokee County, and sinking into Ottawa County. So it's kind of blowing back to the southwest here. But look at Joplin, less than half-mile visibility. We do have patchy fog across the area. It's just this is where our densest fog is right now. No dense fog advisories out there, but you've got to be careful. This is our camera at 7th and Rangeline. You can see how thick that fog is. We're sitting at 62, the calm breeze, 93% humidity out there. Our dew point at 60. And remember, when your dew point and temperature are the same, you get 100% humidity. So as our temperatures start to fall back toward their official lows, we may see some of that fog thicken up. 65 in Fort Scott, Chatopa, 64s in Neodesha, Independence, Parsons, and Pittsburgh, 63 in Miami, Neosho, Anderson, and 60 in Carthage this morning. As we get our morning started, again, an isolated shower or two will be possible, but 98% of us will remain dry. Will otherwise be mostly cloudy through the morning, mid-60s. As we head into the afternoon, the fog, the clouds, all that starts to clear out. Last of the showers will be out of here by about 2, 3 o'clock, and we'll go into the mid-70s with those partly cloudy skies. As we head into this evening, partly cloudy skies continue. Nice temperatures out there. Open up the windows. We're going to go back down to 60 tonight, but we're going to look at more fog as we head late into tonight and early on our Wednesday morning, like what we're dealing with now. So you've got to just be careful out there. And what we remind you all the time, use your low beams, not your high beams. And if you have fog lights, obviously switch those on, because you do not want to be out there, not be able to see. But if you turn on your brights, it makes it not only where you can't see, because by the way, it doesn't help, it just brightens the clouds. And number 2, it blinds other drivers. So don't do that. We are looking otherwise at upper 70s to right around 80 degrees by Monday as we go through this week. So still below average, warm, comfortable, but below average. Few isolated shower chances possible on Thursday. Overnight lows for the most part hanging out in the upper 50s. Let's check your forecast. We'll be right back after this. But first, we got another live look at what is about to officially become the Jake Reed Memorial Bridge in Joplin.
A circus in Germany has become the first in the world to harness technology instead of animals. Ian Lee reports on how they're bringing a new type of magic under the big top.
Stepping right up, this spectacle in Germany looks like any other circus. Acrobats perform death-defying stunts, a contortionist bends beyond belief, and of course, there's a clown. But the animals are missing, at least in the flesh. If you can create holographs of people who are no longer alive, why can't you do that with animals, says manager Patrick Philadelphia. His big idea under the big top came after seeing Justin Timberlake perform a duet with a hologram of the late singer Prince, and says his circus achieves the perfect balancing act, packing all the fun without the cruelty, as giant projectors bring elephants, horses, and lions alive in 3D form.
Imagination is the limit, so whatever you can imagine, and it can be created by an animator, by a graphic designer.
The high-tech holographic risk of no live animals seems to be a hit. This student says, "I've never heard of this circus before, and then I learned that it didn't have any animals. That was particularly important to me." While this German doctor calls the animal-free festival very special, showcasing a new way forward for the greatest show on earth. Ian Lee, CBS News, London.
Here in the U.S., dozens of states have restricted or banned the use of wild animals in circuses. Animal rights activists are pushing to remove all of them from the big top, saying having them in the show is unnecessarily cruel with no educational value. And when talking about fish specimens, the first thing that comes to mind is the aquarium. However, there's a secret fish specimen museum in Shanghai, which was founded in 1952 by the founder of Ichthyological Research in China. More than 20,000 bottles of precious fish specimens have been hidden in the Research Institute of the Chinese Academy of Fishery Sciences, and few people know about them. In this fish specimen museum, a large number of specimens collected by the East China Sea Fisheries Research Institute during fishery surveys are preserved, most of which are more than 60 or 70 years old. Some rare and even extinct species can also be seen here. Just last year, the paddlefish was declared extinct, and this paddlefish specimen has become a precious research material that remains in the world. If you work up an appetite playing the board game Settlers of Catan, you can turn to a new cookbook for recipe ideas as you map out your strategy. That's right, Catan concept is diversifying. Catan, the official cookbook, is now available, and it includes 77 recipes inspired by the board game. They pay homage to the game in which competitors try to build settlements on a fictional island using 5 resources: wool, grain, lumber, brick, and ore. They include instructions for dishes with lamb to honor the wool resource, and several recipes call for bricks and cast iron as a nod to the game's use of bricks and ore, like this brick chicken recipe. The cookbook also includes recipes for snacks, small plates, full dinners, desserts, and even a few drinks. Point Defiance Zoo and Aquarium announced the birth of a female muskox calf, sharing video of the baby's physical examination. The calf was born on Thursday to muskoxen parents Charlotte and Hudson, the zoo said. Footage shows the zoo's veterinary team performing a health exam of mother and calf. The calf appears to be healthy and is beginning to wander around the zoo's grassy Arctic tundra habitat. Muskoxen, an ancient species, are native to prairies and roaming tundra of Greenland, Alaska, and northern Canada. And we'll be right back after these messages. The newly discovered comet Nishimura will be closest to Earth around sunrise Tuesday. It's already visible from Earth, and amateur astronomers are already spotting it with the naked eye. The best chance to see it might be checking the horizon just before sunrise. It'll be about 78 million miles away, but the website Earth Sky says it could be difficult for some to see. That's because it'll be just north of the eastern horizon and the sun's brightness could overpower it. In fact, Nishimura will be closest to the sun on September 17th, which might be the best chance to spot it for many. According to NASA, the comet could contribute to another show in December. Some scientists think its debris might make the Sigma Hydrids meteor shower more active. As Star Wars fans could own a piece of movie history, but it's going to cost them. A long-lost model of X-Wing fighter used in 1977's Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, is up for auction. The starting price is $400,000. The model was used in close-ups during the final battle scene, where the Rebel Alliance fought the Empire above the Death Star. Heritage Auctions says the model is part of a collection that belonged to the late Greg Jean, an award-nominated miniature maker. He's known for his work on Star Trek and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The model will be auctioned on October 14th and 15th. And gamers across the country, today is your day to compete. September 12th is National Video Games Day. From virtual reality to PC games to handheld devices and mobile games, you have lots to choose from. The industry is always innovating, adding features like hyper-real 3D and ultra-high-definition graphics. Among the most popular games right now are Call of Duty, Minecraft, Fortnite, and Grand Theft Auto. For beginning gamers, today is a perfect day to try one out.
And we've got ourselves some fog out there to contend with this morning. An isolated shower or two possible before 3 p.m. Most of us will remain dry. We're mostly cloudy to get our morning started. We're going to go into the mid-60s. And as we head into the afternoon, again, stray shower or two, 98% of us remaining dry. Those will wrap up by about 3. And we're going to go into the mid-70s for our highs today, so still below average under partly cloudy skies. A great evening out there, partly cloudy, cool conditions, nice weather. Sit out on the front porch and open the windows, whatever you may want to do. And then we'll eventually drop back down to 60 tonight, but like we're dealing with now, fog will return late tonight into early tomorrow morning, so we're going to have to watch out for that as well. As we head down the road, we are going to stay for the most part in the upper 70s, save this 81 by Monday. Maybe a few isolated showers Thursday evening, but otherwise, check it out. We got a great week ahead of us, below average temperatures. Now, as we head into next week, we do start to warm up a bit, still at or slightly below average as we go into the low to mid 80s. And we could see a few more stray showers as we head into our Tuesday of next week as well. That's a quick check of your forecast. We've got another entire hour of the KOAM morning news right after this.
Right now it's 6, why some travelers on US 400 in southeast Kansas should expect a detour this week.
And if you're traveling in parts of the area this morning, you need to expect to slow down for some dense fog. We'll talk about that and have that forecast to get you out the door coming up.
Plus, how one college organization at MSSU is helping to combat an invisible epidemic.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning, 4 states, and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. The time now is 6 a.m. I'm Caitlin O'Shaughnessy.
I'm Chris Warner. So we've got some fog out there. We've got some cool temperatures. Not everybody getting the same dense fog that we're seeing across the metro area, but we still do have some patchy fog across the entire area. Let's take a quick look. These are 4 different MoDOT cameras across the Joplin area, and you can see down by 32nd in range line, that is the one right over here. The fog is still there, but not nearly as thick. It's still slowly drifting to the south, but you can see 7th in range line, 7th in Garden Grove out by Duquesne, and now at 20th in range line. Look at how thick that fog has become. It's actually made that camera look relatively dark out there. And that's the thing, is the dense fog is just centered over one area. It's just part of this mass that's been drifting to the south and west from Jasper County, now covering a good portion of Cherokee and moving into Ottawa County. So right along the I-44 corridor heading into Oklahoma, the southern end here of the 69 corridor in Kansas, and parts of the I-49 corridor. But take a look. When we have clear conditions, visibilities should be maxed out at 10, like they are in Bentonville right now. But you can see we've got reduced visibilities everywhere, so you've got to slow down, give yourself time to get where you're going this morning, as we do have some patchy fog, some of it dense in rural locations across the area. A few isolated showers possible. 98% of us are going to remain dry, but there could be a stray shower or two this morning as the kids get on the bus. We're looking at upper 50s. And when they come home, all of us under partly cloudy skies, we go into the low 70s. We get our morning started. We're looking pretty good again. Isolated showers possible before 3 p.m., but 98% of us should remain dry. We're mostly cloudy as we get our morning started as well, heading into the mid-60s by 11. We'll have another full look at your forecast and how the rest of this week is shaping up here in just a few more minutes. Caitlin?
Thanks, Chris. A Pittsburgh man is in jail without bond after his arrest on multiple warrants over the weekend. He's 40-year-old Jerome DeVore. Police were called to the 500 block of East 6th Street for a disturbance Saturday evening and saw DeVore, who had multiple felony warrants from Crawford and Cherokee counties. DeVore fled into the home and officers heard movement in a connected commercial building. Authorities got a search warrant for the commercial building, then used a police dog to find DeVore hiding inside. Demolition began on a building popular in Joplin's past. The Holiday Inn at 3615 Rangeline Road was once Joplin's largest hotel with 262 rooms, a popular lounge, and the Water Wheel restaurant. The hotel ceased operations in 2016 in anticipation of a remodel that never came. Delays led to dilapidation, and in recent years, the Joplin Fire Department has been called to the structure multiple times for fires. It's been labeled as one of Joplin's most dangerous buildings. And watch as an explosion brings down a historic Missouri bridge. The Missouri Department of Transportation live streamed this footage of the demolition of the I-70 Rochport Bridge near Columbia. The bridge over the Missouri River was built in 1960 and underwent extensive rehabilitation in '93, according to MoDOT, but was judged to be at the end of its useful life. Traffic is flowing again in that area. Crews have been removing the debris from the river to clear the channel for boat traffic. A new $220 million bridge is scheduled to be completed by December 2024. Some travelers on US 400 in southeast Kansas should expect a detour this week. That's because the South Kansas and Oklahoma Railroad plans to close and repair the US 400 crossing at Cherokee. That crossing will be closed to traffic from 6 a.m. Wednesday to 6 p.m. Thursday. Eastbound traffic will detour south on K7 to K103, then east to US 69 and north to US 400. Westbound traffic takes the same route in the opposite direction. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt calls for a special session specifically to deal with taxes. Stitt says he's demanding tax fairness for all Oklahomans, a tax cut, and an increase in transparency of the state budget process. He asked legislators to ultimately eliminate state income taxes for all Oklahomans. And food insecurity on college campuses is an invisible epidemic that one organization at Missouri Southern is helping combat. KOAM's Elise Snow has more.
As college students head back to school, it can be easy to forget just how much they have on their plate. But one of the biggest struggles for students isn't what's on their plate, but what's missing from it. Food. 44.9% of Missouri college students experience food insecurity as of 2021. The Lion Co-op at Missouri Southern is helping their students combat food insecurity with their food pantry.
Students can come in when they need to and kind of shop and then take what they need. And we don't really have a lot of restrictions. We ask that they take what they need for a few days and then they can come back.
There's often a stigma around food insecurity, but as grocery prices increase, so does the demand for affordable food.
And really with the cost of food being so high right now, and then just the cost of education, and many people have food insecurity, and it's nothing to be ashamed of.
Samantha White, a student intern at the co-op, sees the difference it makes with her peers on campus.
I had one student last year come to me saying last year it helped him a lot, and he's in a lot better place because of what support Lion Co-op gave to him last year.
Food insecurity and food instability are just some of the financial struggles that Missouri college students are facing, and places like the Lion Co-op help make that burden a little more easier to bear. Reporting in Joplin, Elise Snow, KOAM News.
To learn more about the Lion Co-op, you can visit their website at mssu.edu/lioncoop. That's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, the manhunt for the killer in Pennsylvania continues, even though it's been nearly 2 weeks since he escaped from prison. Plus, why one teacher in Florida has resigned weeks after black students were singled out in an assembly. And Chris Warner returns with another look at your Tuesday forecast. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. We'll be right back, but first, here's a live look from the soon-to-be Jake Reed Memorial Bridge in Joplin. Topping Nation Watch this morning, Instacart's latest valuation is tens of billions of dollars below what the company was worth just a year ago. The grocery delivery company revealed in an updated initial public offering filing that it's aiming to price its stock between $26 and $28 per share. That would put the company's value at around $7.4 billion at the midpoint. Taking into account restricted stock, options, and warrants, Instacart would be valued as high as $9.3 billion. On the bright side, it generated $242 million in profit for the first half of 2023. That's compared with a $74 million loss for the same time period a year ago. The jackpot for Monday's Powerball drawing is an estimated $522 million, the third largest Powerball jackpot of the year. The cash option lump sum payout value is $252.4 million. This after there were no tickets matching all 6 numbers in Saturday's drawing. That drawing did produce winners, though, more than 1 million of them across the country. That included 2 tickets worth $1 million each in New Hampshire and Virginia, and a winning ticket worth $2 million in Florida. The previous Powerball jackpot win was for $1.08 billion, the third largest Powerball jackpot ever won. That was July 19th, and there have been 22 consecutive drawings since then without a jackpot winner. A Florida public school teacher has resigned weeks after black students were singled out in assembly and told to improve their school performance. Flagler County Schools confirms Anthony Hines submitted his resignation later last week. The 28-year veteran teacher says he is devastated. Hines, who is African American, says the intent of the assembly was to misconstrue and that he was looking for a way to incentivize and encourage students to strive for higher test scores. He says he loves Bonham Elementary and did not want to cause any further problems with the school, so he decided to resign. Hines' resignation came one day after the school's principal announced her resignation. The August 18th assembly had only African American 4th and 5th grade students in attendance. The impeachment trial of Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is expected to wrap up within days. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is overseeing the trial. He said on Monday he expects closing arguments could start as soon as Thursday. Patrick said both sides have used about 14 of the 24 hours allotted to them to present evidence. Once the trial is over, the Senate will head into deliberations. Paxton is facing 16 articles of impeachment. He's accused of a number of crimes that include bribery and misuse of his office to benefit a wealthy donor, and Paxton has denied any wrongdoing. Former President Trump is asking a court to dismiss several criminal charges against him in the Georgia 2020 election interference case. The Monday filings are Trump's opening salvo of legal arguments to challenge the state-level charges. They indicate Trump wants to adopt the legal arguments his racketeering co-defendants Rudy Giuliani and Kenneth Chesebro have already made in court filings. Trump is asking for the state charges to be tossed, even as he has indicted in court filings. He may ask for the case to be moved to federal court, which he can then try to invoke protections for federal officials. A convicted killer is still on the loose in Pennsylvania after residents called 911 saying they spotted him again. It's been nearly 2 weeks since he escaped from prison. CBS's Haley Ott is in New York with the latest on the investigation.
To the rear of the bar.
Police are ramping up their search in the suburbs of Philadelphia after another possible sighting of escaped killer Danilo Cavalcante, warning people to stay indoors amid reports a man matching the inmate's description had a run-in with a homeowner and stole a rifle.
We've always treated him as though he may be armed.
Almost a dozen officers scoured the grounds of one property looking for footprints left by the 5-foot fugitive, who's been on the run now for 13 days.
If it's still like this in a couple of days, I know people around here aren't going to sit by and let it be like that. They might start going out and walking around on their own and try to find them.
Locked up on a life sentence for murdering his ex-girlfriend in front of her 2 children, Cavalcante broke out of prison on August 31st by shimmying up the walls. State police have confirmed at least a dozen sightings in Pennsylvania's Chester County, which spans 750 square miles. Over the weekend, Cavalcante was spotted outside the police perimeter with a drastically different appearance, now clean-shaven and wearing a green sweatshirt. Authorities now say they don't have a defined search area, but their work may have gotten easier.
Now I believe it's advantaged law enforcement because he's in an urban setting.
But as time ticks on, local fear and frustration is mounting.
Police say they're upping the reward for information leading to Cavalcante's arrest to $25,000, hoping that will convince someone to come forward with information. And that's a look at some of today's top national stories. Now here's Chris Warner with a look at your forecast.
Yeah, we are dealing with dense fog, at least for some of us across the area. We've been looking at the MoDOT cameras all morning, and that fog continuing to thicken. We got patchy fog across the area. Still could see an isolated shower or two today as well. And we'll have another full look at your forecast here in just a few more minutes on the KOAM Morning News.
A team of ocean explorers found a sunken golden treasure, but it's not what you think, and even they can't explain it. Jeremy Roth has more.
Deep-sea explorers were at a loss for words after discovering a mysterious golden orb on the ocean floor.
Was this some sort of encrusting sponge?
I don't know what to make of that.
Scientists aboard the NOAA ship Okeanos Explorer were full of questions as they poked and prodded the bizarre iridescent specimen, which they say they found roughly 2 miles beneath the surface in the Gulf of Alaska. Video of the discovery was live streamed and later shared to NOAA's YouTube page, which has been a literal treasure trove of weird and wild underwater discoveries over the years. Scientists collected a sample of the orb for study in their lab. Not sure if it sets the gold standard for bizarre finds, but it certainly left the team searching for answers.
I don't know what to think about this.
Above the surface, an odd ocean voyage was halted before it even started. Coast Guard authorities arrested a man attempting to cross the Atlantic, he says for charity, in a giant floating hamster wheel-like vessel. Officials say this isn't the man's first attempt at the journey, but given this time he engaged in a multi-day standoff while allegedly making threats while armed with a knife, it very well may be his last attempt. Finally, beachgoers were glowing as they gathered to marvel at bright blue bioluminescent waves that lit up the nighttime surf in Southern California. Members of the Facebook group Bioluminescence in Orange County shared stunning images of the amazing natural phenomenon, which occurs when churning waves cause a chemical reaction in natural light-emitting organisms like algae blooms. For Take a Look at This, I'm Jeremy Roth.
When it comes to exploring the ocean, you never know what you'll just find. Now let's take it over to Chris for a look at your forecast.
Yeah, we've been talking about that dense fog for some of us across the area this morning. We'll have another look at that and how the rest of our day is shaping up when the KOAM Morning News returns. Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News, 6:22 now on this Tuesday morning across the area. And we've had fog across the area as well, at least for some of us, some pretty dense fog. Look at the MODOT cameras around the Joplin metro area, and you can see it still makes it almost look really dark here with the fog on the camera at 20th and Range Line. You can still see it at all 4 points. You head a little further south to Neosho, you can see some of that cloud cover. It's a little foggy, but not nearly as dense from the MODOT camera there. And we're looking a little better from the KDOT camera at US 69 and East 520 just south of Pittsburgh. Still some light fog there as well. So look at the fog tracker. We're starting to see improvements. The denser fog still over central Jasper County, so parts of I-44 and I-49 you got to watch out. But remember, on a good clear day, visibility should be at 10. So we do have some patchy fog around the region, reducing visibilities overall. So you need to slow down, make sure you're giving yourself time to get where you're going out there. Our camera, 7th and Range Line, you can see that fog there as well. But again, starting to thin out a little bit. We're sitting at 62 right now. Our dew point's up to 61, so it puts our humidity at 96%. Remember, when your dew point and your temperature are the same, you get 100% humidity out there. Around the area, temperatures look like this. 60 in Iola, 64 in Chanute, Pittsburgh, Fort Scott, and Nevada, 65 in Chautauqua, Parsons, Neodesha, 63 Neosho, and 61 Monette and Carthage. As we get our morning started, again, an isolated shower or two is going to be possible through the day before 3 p.m. 98% of us will remain dry, but a few of us could still see a stray shower or two. Otherwise, mostly cloudy through the morning and pushing mid-60s by late morning, ahead of highs today into the mid-70s. While those partly cloudy skies as we head later into the afternoon, the last of our showers should wrap up again before 3, and again, those mid-70s for our highs. Partly cloudy skies as we head through the evening. Nice cool temperatures out there. Great evening to sit outside, open the windows. 60 for the overnight low, and we will see the return of dense fog potentially late tonight into early tomorrow morning, so a very similar pattern to what we're seeing this morning. As we head through the rest of the week, save Monday, we're going to spend most of the week in the upper 70s near 80. An isolated shower or two possible on Thursday. Overnight lows again for the most part upper 50s. We've got a lower 60 there Thursday night into Friday morning, but otherwise still below average temperatures across the area. And even as we start to head warm up heading into next week, we're still at or slightly below average as we go back into the low 80s with some additional isolated shower chances for us next Tuesday evening across the 4 states. That is a quick check of your forecast. Now we're going to send it over to Caitlin for a check of Health Watch.
Thanks, Chris. Well, a new study reveals drifting smoke from wildfires could increase the risk of suicide in rural communities. Researchers found as pollution from wildfire smoke increases, so does the rate of suicide by rural white men and rural adults with no college education. That's because they're more likely to work outdoors. Scientists also found smoke pollution increases have no impact on suicide rates among those who live in cities. And people who consider themselves night owls are at a higher risk for diabetes. They are also more likely to have unhealthy behaviors such as smoking, poor sleep, and physical activity compared to those who identify as morning people. The results also suggest those who work night shifts but are morning people may also be at higher risk for health issues. And a study of 900 Canadians between the ages of 15 and 30 reveals that vaping could lead to chronic stress. Young people who vape are more than twice as likely to experience chronic stress than those who don't use e-cigarettes. Researchers also found those who vaped were more likely to be physically active. That's a look at some of today's top health stories. We'll be right back after this. Right now at 6:30, Pitt State hosts a remembrance ceremony honoring the lives lost during the 9/11 terror attacks.
Some of us still contending with some dense fog across the area. We're going to clear out a few isolated showers possible. We'll get you out the door with that forecast coming up.
Plus, we'll hear from some members of Gen Z about how they reflect on the events of that day, even though many weren't even born yet.
The 4 States Most Watched News starts now.
Good morning, 4 States, and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. The time now is 6:28 a.m. I'm Caitlin O'Shaughnessy.
I'm Chris Warner. So it's a little bit cooler out there this morning, a little bit foggy out there this morning, and we've been keeping an eye on that. Not everybody getting this really dense fog like we've seen around the Joplin area, but still patchy fog across the region. Our camera 7th and range line showing that fog. It is starting to look slightly better, but we don't know how long that's going to last. Fog is fun like that. A quick look at the MoDOT cameras around the metro, and you can see the fog looking a little better. We can see a little more from the 7th and Garden Grove camera, so that's over by Duquesne. You can see a little more even from their 7th and Rangeline camera, and starting to clear up a bit from 20th and Rangeline. It didn't get super dense down by 32nd Street, but it's still starting to clear out. And if we look, you can see the fog not nearly as dense. Visibility now up just over 2 miles in Joplin. Earlier this morning, it was down to about half a mile, but still the thicker fog through Jasper County, right along the I-44 and I-49 corridors. But take a look, on a good clear day, which is what Bentonville seems to be getting, visibility should be at 10, and all of them less than that. So we've got patchy fog across the area. It's denser in rural areas, so when you're commuting this morning, just make sure you are aware of that. Use your low beams, not your high beams, and of course, if you've got fog lights, use those. Isolated shower or two possible as kids get on the bus this morning. 98% of us are going to be dry, but we'll have that stray shower chance through at least 3 o'clock, and then that's going to be the end of that. We're otherwise mostly cloudy, upper 50s by 7, and then as the bus brings them home this afternoon, we're looking at lower 70s, partly cloudy skies, and we should be done with the last of the showers by then. As we get our morning started, again, other than an isolated shower or two, we're mostly cloudy this morning, going into the mid-60s by late morning, and the future track picking up on a few of those isolated random showers, so you can see they're very isolated, very random, and then by about 3 o'clock or so, they will clear on out of here, so our rain chances relatively low, and then once we start to hit the afternoon, those rain chances pretty well drop off to 0. We're going to take another full look at your forecast and how the rest of this week is shaping up here in just a few more minutes. Caitlin?
Thanks, Chris. A church in Neodesha, Kansas held a lunch to honor local first responders. St. Ignatius Catholic Church handed out barbecue to police, firefighters, doctors, and nurses. Organizers say it's important to honor the brave men and women who risk their lives to save ours.
It was something that we ought to honor these people and show them that we appreciate them being there. And, you know, they're here in the good times, but we really need them in the bad times. And so I thought we ought to just honor them and show a little bit of appreciation.
The Neodesha High School Choir sang the national anthem at the event. And a Neodesha Funeral Home served up an appreciation lunch for first responders. This marks the 10th year the funeral home has honored local first responders with such an event.
Watch everything kind of unfold as it went, and so it always kind of made a big impact on me and was another big influencer as far as getting into this profession later in life.
Many men and women became first responders or enlisted in the military in the days following 9/11. And someone who remembers the events all too well that day is retired Navy Captain Joseph Gradisher. He visited the Coleman Theater in Miami to give a presentation about the attack on the Pentagon. At the time, Gradisher worked as a spokesman in the Navy's Chief of Information Office at the Pentagon. He was there when a plane crashed into the building.
When, without warning, we got hit. And I had my back to a window that was right in the direction where the plane came in. And when it hit, there was a big wham! And I ducked because it felt like it was coming in over my shoulder. And then you think your first reaction is to run, but it's to look out the window.
People were able to meet Captain Gradisher and speak to him personally. And students in the ROTC at Pitt State honored victims of the terrorist attacks on the Twin Towers in the Pentagon. Pitt State ROTC marked the observance known as Patriot Day with cannon fire at 8:46 Eastern Time when an airliner hit the first World Trade Center tower, and again at 8:59 Eastern when another plane hit the second tower. One cadet talked about what the day means to him.
When I think about 9/11, I wasn't born yet, but it makes me angry. Makes me want to see the unification of the country again, and that 9/11 was a terrible day, but we were never more unified than we were on 9/12.
The cadets also did a push-up for every name read who fell on 9/11. And many Americans remember watching the events of 9/11 unfold, but newer generations have a different perspective. Traveling looked a lot different before 9/11. No long checkout lines. You could actually bring a blade up to 4 inches on board a plane. And needless to say, Gen Z just can't relate. Many Gen Zers we spoke with say that they learned the significance of 9/11 through their loved ones.
My mother knew it was a great tragedy, but she was really struck by it because of my dad, since my dad is, well, now he's retired from the military. Pretty sure he joined in 2003, served 2 tours in Afghanistan, 1 tour in Iraq, and 1 tour in Kuwait.
When the KOAM Morning News switches to Fox 14, we'll hear from more members of Gen Z on how they're reflecting on 9/11. Kansas kicked off its Patriot Day observance a day early with a classic car and bike show. Dozens of cars lined the streets at the VA hospital in Wichita. Cars in the show were judged by patients of the VA hospital with 3 awards handed out afterwards.
The country, the state of Kansas will never forget. We'll never forget 9/11. None of us will forget that day. And hopefully we continue to teach the younger ones that what happened that day and how we continue to remember and honor.
The car show also took donations for the Wichita Toy Run happening in November. Watered Gardens in Joplin will host its 11th annual Empty Boils event later this month, but some people just can't wait. An early bird special started for people to buy the bowls handcrafted by local artists until the 23rd. The sales support organizations that feed people.
It keeps the momentum going, and people just like the idea that it brings the community together, which it does, and just the environment, the vibe of the Joplin Greenhouse that we're having it at this year. We are going to be receiving a percentage of the sales of the coffee from the coffee bar the evening of the event. So it's just it's a way to bring everyone together, and who doesn't love a beautiful pottery bowl that's handcrafted just for them?
You can buy a bowl early at the Joplin Greenhouse and Coffee Shop. The actual Empty Bowls event will be held on September 24th. And that's a look at our top news stories coming up this half hour in the KOAM Morning News. Why California is the leading wine-producing state in the U.S., but other regions are coming on strong and becoming tourism hotspots.
Plus, we've got a pretty decent Tuesday lined up for us once we get through this dense fog this morning. We'll take a look at that forecast when we come back. But first, got another live look from the 20th Street Bridge in Joplin that later today will officially become the Jake Reed Memorial Bridge.
In Consumer Watch this morning, today's Travel Tuesday in California is far and away the leading wine-producing state in the U.S., but other regions are coming on strong and becoming tourism hotspots. It's big business, raking in more than $50 billion in revenues domestically. CBS News correspondent Wendy Gillette reports from Hot Springs, Virginia.
Wine enthusiasts know Napa Valley. The region boasts about a third of California's wineries, some now high-tech, like InkGrade's 360-degree video projection and tasting. Others feature epic views like Arteza or high-end food and wine pairings, available at Height Cellar and Stag's Leap Wine Cellars. But far from California, the wine world is welcoming newcomers in Texas Hill Country west of Austin. At Ferris and Fletch in picturesque Fredericksburg, Rick Dvorak from San Antonio recently stopped by for a tasting.
I enjoy any wine, but some of these wines are really good.
Sprinkled among quaint hotels like Hill Country Herb Garden with its standalone cottages, Enophiles find more than 100 wineries, from the small batch wine producer Narrow Path to the much larger Becker Vineyards.
The industry is fairly young by comparison to other wine growing regions in the country.
After a mere 4 decades of serious grape growing, Texas has the 5th most wineries in the nation, behind New York, Oregon, Washington, and California.
It tends to be a little bit hotter here, so our harvest season's a little bit earlier and finishes a little bit earlier than most places.
Another big slice of wine country is here in Virginia. The state ranks 6th in the nation for the number of wineries, around 300. The Omni Homestead, one of the hotels we stayed at for a special rate, capitalizes on the winery's popularity with Virginia Wine Weekends, showcasing local winemakers and pairing bottles with multi-course dinners.
What is distinctive of Virginia terroir is that all of our wines have a more floral essence. There's a minerality component that is long in our finish.
23 U.S. presidents have stayed at the resort and bathed in its mineral springs and perhaps sipped a little Virginia wine produced from more than 4,000 acres. Wendy Gillette, CBS News.
Texas has the second most visited wine region in the U.S. behind California. Personally, though, I think Oregon is way better. And the biggest antitrust trial in decades begins today, and it's Google versus the U.S. The Justice Department claims Google paid billions to Appear and other partners to be the default search engine on devices and web browsers, stifling competitors. Google argues its search engine is the default because of its high quality and popularity with users. The trial is expected to last several weeks. MGM Resorts International says its gaming floors are back in business after a cybersecurity issue caused an outage at resorts around the U.S. The issue began Sunday and impacted the company's reservation systems and casino floors. MGM says it has manual protocols in place to help guests in times of computer disruption. The company is investigating the cause of the issue. And Kia is recalling roughly 145,000 Sorrentos because the mounting clips on the rearview camera may break unexpectedly. That could cause the camera's display to not appear properly, increasing the risk of a crash. The recall covers the 2022 and 2023 Sorrento, Sorrento Hybrid, and Sorrento plug-in hybrids. Affected owners can take their cars to the dealership for a free repair. And that's it for Consumer Watch. Now here's Chris Warner with another look at your forecast.
Yeah, we're seeing improving conditions across the area in terms of the fog. It's still out there, but not nearly as dense as we'd been seeing it over the Joplin metro area and through Jasper, parts of Cherokee and Ottawa counties. Thankfully, again, clearing up. We've got the chance for an isolated shower or two across the area this morning, but not looking too bad otherwise. Another view from MoDOT camera at US 60 and Missouri 59 in Neosho. And we'll take a quick look in Kansas from the KDOT camera at 69 East 520th Avenue just south of Pittsburgh, looking a lot better than it was earlier this morning. We're having another look at your forecast and how this week is shaping up here in just a couple of minutes. We're also going to be coming back to celebrate birthdays and anniversaries, all of that coming up after the break. But first, these folks busy getting ready for CBS Mornings, and let's see what's happening on CBS Mornings.
I'm Nate Burleson. Coming up on CBS Mornings, you definitely know about her book club, but Oprah will be here to talk about something she helped write. It's called Build the Life You Want. That's coming up on CBS Mornings.
All right, time for some Tuesday birthdays here in the 4 states, and we're going to begin in Parsons with Lucas Hendricks, celebrating the big number 6. Happy birthday, Lucas.
All right, and taking it over to Pittsburgh, happy 7th birthday to Caroline Falk.
And twins in Hepler, Avery and Emery Mingarelli, celebrating birthday number 8. Happy birthday.
Too cute. And over in Wyandotte, Oklahoma, Happy 27th birthday to Bailey Essex.
And in Nevada, we've got Austin Pike celebrating the big 3-0. Happy birthday, Austin.
And happy birthday to Holly Johnson over in Columbus, Kansas.
And in Girard, Mike Cisney celebrating birthday number 45 with happy birthday love coming from Missy, Evan, Aiden, Marley, and Quinn, Mom and Gail, Jerry, and Diane. Lots of love for Mike on his birthday.
And here we have Mary Jo Little of Walnut, Kansas. She is the lady in the red. Happy birthday, Mary Jo.
And the lady in the green shirt here, well, that would happen to be Janet Maher, celebrating another year wiser in Chanute.
Still in Chanute, it's Doug Toon's 66th birthday. Happy birthday, Doug.
And Joseph Inch celebrating birthday number 70 in St. Paul. Happy birthday, Joseph.
Oh, and we have a big congratulations to Matt and Amber Alloway over in Parsons. Today they are celebrating their 13th wedding anniversary.
All right, and our list continues. Cy Schuberger celebrating another year wiser over in Columbus. Happy birthday, Cy.
And Rhonda Kimmick in Helpler, Kansas, turning 72 today.
Over in Frontenac, we've got Ty Norman celebrating a birthday. Happy birthday, Ty.
Hey, and we have another 13th anniversary, this time in Arma, Kansas, with Brandon and Emily Lallemand. Congratulations, you two.
All right, we love celebrating these with y'all. We'd love to see more pictures out there. Caitlin, where can they send all this stuff to?
Oh, please, just send them on over to birthdays at KOAMnewsnow.com. Birthdays, anniversaries, you name it, we want to talk about it on air.
Absolutely. And another thing we've been talking about this morning has been the fog. Now, we're taking a look at the MoDOT cameras from around the Joplin metro area, all of them looking significantly better, but you can still see there is some fog out there, and that's the case around the region. MoDOT camera, US 60, Missouri 59 Neosho. If you look west, down US 60 toward Lusk, you can see some light fog out there as well, and some light fog just behind this banner from the KDOT camera at US 69 East 520th Avenue, just south of Pittsburgh. Our fog tracker, again, remember on a clear day, visibility on these should be reading 10. We have patchy fog around the region, but the densest fog still has been holding on right around central Jasper County, so parts of I-44 and I-49, that's where that densest fog has been, but we've got patchy fog around the region, so you got to take time out there. Remember, use your low beams, not your high beams, and of course, if you got fog lights, use those as well. Our camera 7th and range line, you can see a little bit better out there, as again, the fog's starting to clear a little. Sitting at 63 in Joplin right now, and around the region with this northerly breeze, or light northerly breeze, we have 59 in Iola, 64 Fort Scott, Nevada, Lamar, Pittsburgh, and Chanute, 65 Neodesha, Parsons, Chatopa, 63 Miami, Neosho, and we're sitting at 62 in Carthage. As we get our morning started, again, an isolated shower or two is going to be possible before 3 p.m. 98% of us are going to remain dry, but there could be a stray shower or two. We're mostly cloudy to get the day started. We're going to go mid-60s by late morning, and as we head into the afternoon, not looking too bad. Highs mid-70s. Clouds begin to clear out. We're going to go partly cloudy, maybe even some mostly clear skies out there as well, with the last of those showers wrapping up around about, like I said, about 3 o'clock or so. Any additional showers we see also look to be confined right along or south of I-44, but they're going to be very isolated. We head into this evening. Great evening out there. Partly cloudy skies, cool temperatures, wonderful conditions. 60 for our low. However, like we've been doing with this morning, we're looking at the return of that fog as we go into late evening hours and early tomorrow morning. So once again, you need to be prepared for some patchy, dense fog across the area. We're going to stay below average as we head through the rest of this week into the upper 70s and maybe even a lower 80 degree out there, but still below average. A few showers possible Thursday evening. Overnight lows, for the most part, hanging out in the 50s. Well, coming up when the KOAM Morning News makes this transition to Fox 14 at 7 a.m., what started out as a hobby has become so much more for one Wisconsin man. We're going to meet that man and tell you about his collection of more than 40,000 records that spans decades.
Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. A Pittsburgh man is in jail without bond after his arrest on multiple warrants over the weekend. He's 40-year-old Jerome DeVore. Police were called to the 500 block of East 6th Street for a disturbance Saturday evening and saw DeVore, who had multiple felony warrants from Crawford and Cherokee counties. DeVore fled into his home and officers heard movement in a connected commercial building. Authorities got a search warrant for the building, then used a police dog to find DeVore hiding inside. Demolition began on a building popular in Joplin's past. The Holiday Inn at 3615 Rangeline Road was once Joplin's largest hotel with 262 rooms, a popular lounge, and the Water Wheel restaurant. The hotel ceased operations in 2016 in anticipation of a remodel that never came. Delays led to dilapidation, and in recent years, the Joplin Fire Department has been called multiple times to put out fires there. It's been labeled as one of Joplin's most dangerous buildings. Some travelers on US 400 in southeast Kansas should expect a detour this week. That's because the South Kansas and Oklahoma Railroad plans to close and repair the US 400 crossing at Cherokee. That crossing will be closed to traffic from 6 a.m. Wednesday to 6 p.m. Thursday. Eastbound traffic will detour south on K7 to K103, then east to US 69 and north to US 400. Westbound traffic will take the same route in the opposite direction. And that's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
After we get through this morning's fog, we have a pretty decent day. Partly cloudy skies, an isolated shower or two possible before 3 p.m. Most of us dry. Mid-70s. We'll go through the evening. Partly cloudy skies, cool temperatures, more fog overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning. So do be prepared for that as we go back down to 60. And then we're going to stay below average for the next several days heading into the weekend as we go into the 70s, low 80s in some places. Overnight lows into the 50s and maybe some showers on Thursday.
Not too bad. Well, coming up today at noon, we're making gooey peanut butter squares in the Mr. Food Test kitchen.
And your morning news continues on KOAM with CBS Mornings. Coming up next, you definitely know about our book club, but Oprah will be live in studio to talk about something she helped write. It's called Build the Life You Want.
Or you can switch on over with us on Fox 14, where your only local morning news continues. This morning, the new stop-motion animation, The Inventor, brings the life story of a legendary artist to a younger generation.
Plus, Lisa Edelstein is known for her roles in TV shows from The West Wing to House MD to The Kaminsky Method. During the pandemic, she found a different way to express herself. We'll have that story as well. And we want to remind folks that the bridge dedication on East 20th Street for the Jake Reed Memorial Bridge dedication will take place at 4:30 this afternoon, and parking will be available in the Harmony Heights Baptist Church parking lot. So if you've got time, make sure you get out there and support the police department and support this dedication of that bridge.
Absolutely.
That's going to wrap it up for us for now, though. We will see you back here tomorrow morning. You know when. It's 5 a.m.
And of course, we'll see you today at noon.